What's up, guys? Welcome to a new episode of the ynggpodcast. Today, we're going to be giving our thoughts on basically a little rundown post October, I guess, rankings of what we think of these teams after 1 month and after the month of October and a little bit into the month of November. So we have a couple of categories. We have the Stanley Cup contenders, which is number one, playoff teams. So teams that are going to be in the mix, just missing out. So teams that are borderline missing the playoffs, but could potentially squeeze in by the end of the year in 2024. And then mediocre would be, a team that is not really doing so well, and lottery team, a team that's expected to finish in the bottom five. So those are our rankings, and like we usually see in other videos, it's just our opinion. It's just based off what we've seen in the first 11 to 15 games so far throughout the NHL, all 32 teams. Things could change. We could look back at this video and be like, wow, we really, messed up with this one. Teams are riding hot streaks, and teams are expected to cool off at one point, or maybe they're continuing to be an actual contender. But we'll get into all of that in our video, and starting off with the Colorado Avalanche, who have been depleted significantly with many injuries.
Yeah, I mean, I would put them in. It's hard to say. It's early on in the year. I'm going to put them in playoff teams. The reason I don't have them as Stanley Cup contenders, I know it's only the first 15 games of the season, but this is a team that's getting help back. Lehkonen came back last week. Nichushkin is skating and should be back relatively soon. Jonathan Drouin is on the verge of coming back as well. So they're going to get reinforcements. My concern with Colorado is in net. This is a team that has had trouble getting goaltending from Georgiev and also from Kaapo Kähkönen. Annanen's played well. He hasn't played exceptionally well, but he's played well enough for them to still get wins. So I don't know if I would call Colorado at this point through the first 15 games of the season a cup contender. I would argue they're a playoff team. I would argue they'll make it in, but they'll need to play better hockey. They'll obviously need to get guys back and also potentially make a move and get a goaltender, because right now it ain't working.
Well, obviously they got off to a shaky start, 6-7. Not the best start of the season for them, even considering their standard of slow starts. But look, the core of this team is a core that could take you to that special place. I've mentioned this in previous videos. When you got a guy like Makar, who's the most dynamic defenseman in the league, and you got guys like Rantanen and McKinnon, the sky's really the limit. Casey Middlestap is a good fit as well. They've got some depth scoring. And like Lucas said, it's really at goaltending the concern for them. And I think their D-core beyond the top pairing and beyond obviously Makar and Taves, I think there's some concerns there. Sam Girard is good, but defensively as a team, they've struggled at times. This is a team I'm not worried about scoring goals, but keeping the puck out of their net is the biggest concern. And there could be games where they play really well and the goaltending just doesn't fit, and they've got to basically outscore their opposition. That's not always a formula for success. But I still think, with the core of this team being strong, the experience of the group, they made it to the playoffs last year in kind of a similar predicament. I don't see why they shouldn't make it again this year. Chris?
For the Colorado Avalanche, it's a team filled with talent, specifically offensively. You have one of the best defenseman in Cale Makar, who is off to an amazing start. Nathan McKinnon, notched 5 assists in one game in the latest matchup where they lost Makar to an injury, which, we have yet to find out if it's a significant injury. But, you just look at this team as a whole. Like Ross Carlton, started off so well until he got injured. You have Lehkonen and Nichushkin coming back. You have Rantanen on this team. Like everyone, offensively has stepped up. Even the guys that they've called up have been chipping in offensively, but it's just defensively. And I think Devon Taves could be a lot better. I think he's been very disappointing so far this season. And he's usually known as Makar's, second in command, his line mate. And I felt like defensively, it's just Makar by himself at this point. And in terms of goaltending, Gorgiev is unplayable at this point in time, and that's why they snatched up Lankinen on waivers, and he had a very disappointing game versus Tampa Bay. And they're relying on a Noonan who came in last year and impressed, but it's not sustainable. They need a goaltender. I think they need to improve their defense as well, and I think offensively is their strong point. But with getting all these reinforcements, I think they'll be able to outscore the amount of goals that they concede. But does that make them a Stanley Cup contender? No, not until they address all those problems.
Yeah, Sakic is definitely got to make some moves there. Now on to the St. Louis Blues. Luca, do you see them as a team that's going to be making the playoffs this year?
I have them just missing out. My reasoning is very simple. I just don't think they're that good. I mean, listen, they have some good players. Don't get me wrong. I think Colton Parayko's having a really good year. Philip Broberg's been a revelation for this team since he's come in. Obviously out with an injury now. Jordan Kyrou has had a really good start to the year. But I think this is a team that is struggling with a lot of injuries, and eventually it's gonna come back to bite them. It's already started a little bit with them for the Blues, but they're on their way. They still won their last two, so they're playing pretty well, all things considered. My concern with the Blues is just I look at a team like Colorado who's in their division. I look at Winnipeg. I look at Minnesota. I look at Dallas. And obviously these are teams that are off to really good starts and are going to, probably find a way to bounce back in terms of Colorado. So I just think that St. Louis is going to end up being in that, in the mix, but I don't think they're necessarily going to make the playoffs. I like their forward core. I'm not a huge fan of their defense. And in net, I'm still not sure about Binnington and Hofer. Hofer's played well. He's 3-1-0 in his first 4 starts this year. But 339 and 903 save percentage, and Binnington's played well. I mean, he hasn't been horrible. He hasn't been lights out, but he's been relatively okay. I think if they can get decent goaltending and maybe go on a little run, they might be able to squeak in. But right now, it's not because I don't believe in the Blues. I just think that the division is going to be too tough, and with how well the other teams in their division are playing, like Minnesota, Dallas, Winnipeg, and I think with the resurgence of Colorado eventually. I just think they're going to miss out, and that's just
Yeah, and with the Blues, other than that one game where Hofer got starched against the Sens and they conceded them in bunches, he's been pretty reliable. Obviously, Binnington is not my favorite as a starter, but he has been decent for his standards compared to his struggles in the 2 years. He's had a decent start to the campaign. Obviously, Kyrou is unreal for their group. You mentioned, Broberg is out, but also Dylan Holloway looks like he appeared to have a neck injury last game. Blocked the shot with his neck, played a shift, and then went to the bench, and then was stretched out soon after. So, I think some updates are going to be imminent with that situation.
Well, I think he did an interview today, so I think he's okay. But I don't know. I don't know how I don't know if he's out long term or what the deal is with that. But he did speak to the media today, so he's okay.
Okay, that's a good sign for him. And obviously, a team like you said, their core is battling some injuries there. I like some of the additions they made. Obviously they weaponized cap space this year with the offer sheets, and obviously getting a guy like Matthew Joseph, who's a good top 9 forward for practically nothing. Suter's had a decent start to the campaign as well. I see them as a well-rounded group that has a core that is good enough to elevate them to playoff status. I think the concern right now for me, that the thing bothering me is the injuries, and it's like Lucas said, it's the competition within the division. I like they could be a team, right, that gets 91 or 92 points, but that just misses out because their division is so strong and they couldn't get in as a wild card. So that's the only reason I have them being out. But I think this is a really formidable group that's good 5-on-5, special teams decent. But I think overall this is a good group that's good enough. But do I see them making the playoffs this year? Probably not. I feel like they'll just miss out.
this is a team that, like you said, is depleted with injuries, like Colorado. Losing Thomas within the first 5 games of the season. Broberg was arguably their best offensive defenseman, and he goes down with an apparent leg injury. He's out for a couple of weeks. And they've beaten really good teams. Like they just beat Tampa Bay. They beat Toronto twice, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
They beat one of the few teams to beat the Carolina Hurricanes, who are one of the best teams in the league this year. They shut out the New York Islanders. Even though they beat Seattle and San Jose, who were, I guess, bottom tier teams, they've won enough games to be in the middle, right? But this is, again, if the injuries continue to pile on, it's going to affect them long term. And how sustainable is Bennington? Because we've seen him so far this season have really bad games, and then he would have a few, good games. And Hoffer, he was very good as well. He got a shutout versus the Islanders, but he completely got destroyed versus Ottawa. And Bennington let in a couple of goals when he came in to replace Hoffer as well. And I think goaltending needs to be a little bit more consistent. It's good to see Pareko elevating his game, because everyone thought he was regressing these last couple of years, but a guy like Falk needs to be better, who's quarterbacking that power play. And also, before Broberg got injured, they put him on the power play because they were having a hard time, being successful in the power play and winning games for a certain stretch. And unfortunately, that same game that he gets put on the power play, he gets injured. So it's good that they won after that without him. But this is a team that I think guys like Buchnevich need to step up, especially with his new contract extension, if they're gonna want to make the playoffs this year.
Yeah, definitely. And moving on to the Boston Bruins here, let me just take the initiative. This might be a hot take for you both, but we can maybe move this thing around. I have them as a team that this year is just missing out.
I think it's perfect. That's where I was going to place
Look,
them.
they're 27th in the league in scoring right now. Elias Lindholm has been nothing more than a good what should be a good number 2 center. They're paying him like a number 1, and obviously playing with Pasternak, he's been solid, but he hasn't put up the numbers I think they've expected out of the gate from him. And obviously Charlie Coyle I think he has 2 points in the number of games that he's played, pretty much a full season.
It's not great.
Their depth scoring is struggling. A revelation is their third line with Poitras and Geeky, and their decor I think is stabilizing right now. Big, physical, able to suppress a lot of chances, but Korpisalo and net is scary. Swayman's gonna have to carry the load a lot this year. And
wait, let me stop you there. Korpisalo did just get a shutout this past week.
He did get a shutout, but let's not let the sample size of those 20 shots in the shutout like paint the whole picture here. I think there's a lot of concerns with Korpisalo. I think fundamentally he's not there right now. I think there's most backups in the league are ahead of him, and you're asking Swayman basically to be a guy who's going to start 60, 65 games for you, which hasn't happened yet, but I think he's definitely capable. Look, Luca, maybe you agree with me, but I think the Bruins just right now are struggling to find an identity.
I'm going to tell you right now, Zach, I agree with you, and I would even go as far as say they're mediocre. The reason I say that is because I look at their roster, and this is the definition of a team that's a one-line team, right? They have Brad Marchand, they have Charlie Coyle, or Elias Lindholm, and David Pasternak on their first line. And then their first defensive pairing is Charlie McAvoy and Nikita Zadorov. And then in net, they have Swayman. Boston hasn't looked good at all this season. I know they had 2 shutouts back-to-back with Swayman and Korpisalo on back-to-back nights. They then went and got shut out by the Leafs literally the game after. So they're just all over the place. Marchand's not playing well. Pasternak seems to be struggling and having issues with Montgomery. Montgomery benched him last game in the third period. It's a team that's off to a really rough start. And yes, there's concern with Corpusalo. I think with Boston, my biggest concern is their depth. They don't have depth. They don't have guys that can come in and provide secondary scoring. If their top line doesn't score, they're pretty much out of it. Charlie McAvoy hasn't had a really good season offensively at all. He's still a great defenseman, don't get me wrong, but he needs to be better offensively for the Bruins to be better. And they need more. They just need more. And so far, through the first 15 games of the season, they're looking like a team that's going to be mediocre all year. So that's where I see it. I mean, I think they're gonna miss the playoffs. I think the Atlantic is eventually going to shape up the way it's supposed to be, and I just don't think the Bruins are in that mix. But I don't like their group. I don't like what they're showcasing so far, and they haven't been impressive. And I think the only positive sign is Swayman hasn't played bad hockey, but at the same time, you know what, Boston just isn't a good team on paper either. So it's hard to say. That's my opinion on it.
Look, the Boston Bruins offensively have been disasters, like you said, one line team. Very disappointing on how a guy like Pavel Zacha has been playing after finally finding his game after he got traded to the Boston Bruins and the New Jersey Devils, and now it seems like he's playing back to the old, New Jersey Devils version of himself. Uh, Defensively, I think they're doing a good job. I think they're well structured. But Swayman, since signing that contract, like, do you necessarily blame him for conceding a lot of goals?
No.
Or do you blame the Bruins offense for not scoring enough goals to keep the Bruins in games? So you could have a whole debate about that. But, I think they will pick it up, and they showed this past weekend that they're it's quite possible. They shut out two teams back to back, and then their last game they lost, and that's when like
And
question marks.
they got shut out.
Yeah, and they got shut out, and that's where question marks started coming up again. But once they had a perfect weekend, people are like, oh, Boston Bruins are back. Okay, it's one step at a time. But then they get shut out, and then we're back to madness again, right? So I think this is just a bad start for them. We know what this team is capable of under Jim Montgomery. I don't think there's going to be a divorce there anytime soon. This is a guy who turned a mediocre Boston Bruins team into the best team in NHL history according to regular season standings. And even last year, without Bergeron and Krejci coming back, they're still very competitive. So I don't see them not getting somewhat back into form. But I do believe that teams have gotten better in the Atlantic to push out Boston out of a playoff spot.
Yeah. I mean, that's yeah, I agree. I just don't think they're that good personally. I think they're not that impressive, and they can't score goals, man. They have one line. If that line doesn't score, they're pretty much screwed. So that's how I see it. Let's move on to, in my opinion, probably along with Winnipeg, the most impressive team in the National Hockey League. And that's Carolina Hurricanes. I have them Stanley Cup contenders. I have really nothing negative to say about this team. They're fantastic in every aspect. Like, really good defensively. Anderson went down with an injury. Kachetkov's come in. He's looked really good. Orlov has been solid, on the back end. Jacob Slavin's been great. Brent Burns is solid. Their forward core has been really good. Aho, Natchez, who's having a career season, Marty Natchez.
Got the money.
Seth Jarvis is another one that's playing really well. Jesperi Kotkaniemi early on in the season looking pretty solid for them. I like what they're doing. And what I love about Carolina, and we've always talked about Carolina, they have depth. They're able to score on every single line. They have a rookie player, Jackson Blake, who's got 4 goals on the year. He's been fantastic for them since joining them from the beginning of the season. This is a team that's scoring in bunches. They're not letting in a lot of goals. They're winning games comfortably. Like, you really have nothing negative to say about the Carolina Hurricanes. They're getting production from everybody. And like I said, Marty Natchez is showing that he's one of the best players in the National Hockey League right now.
But is it sustainable? That's the question.
For Natchez
Well, look,
or for the team?
for Natchez.
I don't know if it's sustainable, but 20 points in 12 games is
Look, he's
nothing
got the
to.
opportunity. His ice time took a tick up by like 3 minutes a game. He's definitely going to
Yeah,
get all, and he's going to get PP1. He's getting PP1 time.
yeah.
He's going to get all the looks he
But
can
he
to
did
have.
get that as well last year, and it wasn't working, and that's why they brought in a guy like
But
Jake Gensel.
dude, 20
He is
points in
proven.
11
Like
games is nothing to
the
write
guy
home
had
about.
had a 70-point season in this league before. Considering the system they play in Carolina and how widespread it's been, 70 points on in a team when you're getting 15 minutes a night, that's very impressive.
No,
And
I'm not saying he's not a bad player. I'm just saying, like, is it sustainable for him?
I don't know. I don't know if
points
he
this year?
becomes. I don't know if he becomes.
That's
Let's
what
say
he's on pace for right now.
he'll definitely be a point of game player this year. I think he's showing early on in the season that there is another gear that he can take it to. I mean, 20 points in 11 games is really good, but in general, Carolina is just a really good team.
yeah,
Like
but
they're
they have
just
to
really
take it to
good.
the next step because here's
Yeah.
why. Here's why I don't put them in the category as Stanley Cup contenders. I have them as a playoff team. I think this team is great in the regular season. They play a great system with a great coach, have all the depth galore. Goaltending has been, has been a plus for them this year. Freddie Anderson is healthy. But this is what I'll say. If I don't feel comfortable putting them in this tier because I don't think they beat the Rangers in the playoffs. I think that if they play the Rangers again like they did last year, I don't think they have it. I think they don't have the superstar player that is going to be that threat that'll get them over the line. I think they're really good. Do they have a guy like Shesterkin and net? No. Do they have an equalizer anywhere over the roster? They have really good players, but I don't think they have a guy like Artemi Panarin. Sebastian Aho is really good. I don't think he's as good as Panarin. And I think the Rangers also have depth. So I would put the Rangers ahead of them in the tier of Stanley Cup contenders.
Interesting.
For me, it's just they lost a lot of pieces, and if you would have asked me after their offseason, is this team better off? I would have said no. They're gonna take a massive hit, and I've been completely like in awe of this team. They've been really impressive, and Nikash really elevated his game, but like to a level where like he's set himself apart from the pack. Like he has like the guy who's in second in points on this team is Svechnikov with 12, and like that's an 8-point difference, and Aho has 10 less points than him, and Gosper is tied with Jarvis with 9. And it's good to see that, but at the same time, like it's a matter of time when Nikash is gonna calm down, and it's up to guys like Svech, Aho, and Jarvis offensively to step up. And we know Kokaniemi, he's always had good stretchers throughout the season, and then he cools off. It's not sustainable for me to say that this is going to be a Stanley Cup contender. I could be proven wrong, but with Freddie Anderson being out, Kochetkov hasn't had the greatest save percentage as a starting goaltender, and we've seen that in the past. Like that, there's a huge difference when Freddie's in nets, and they've been conceding quite a lot of goals with Kochetkov as their starter. So is that an exposure of the guys that they lost on defense, like Brady Shea, for example? That could be possible. Brett Burns is like almost 40 years old as well, so and he's playing 21 minutes a night. So is that too much for him? But it's good to see guys like Orlov, who they brought in last year, that didn't make an immediate impact, really stepping up his game, and he's starting to look like the Orlov of 2 years ago that played for the Boston Bruins and the Washington Capitals. So it's good to see
back in the
him
top
elevate
4.
his game. And they signed him to a lengthy contract extension too. So it's important that he gets those minutes. And I got like Roslovich, 7 goals in 11 games is pretty impressive too. And they also have Blake, who came in to the NHL this year. That's been pretty impressive, but I just don't see it as sustainable in my opinion. But I will say that Jordan Stahl playing third line center with only 1 goal in 11 games is kind of concerning, and I think there's a massive regression in terms of his play.
I guess we'll see.
So I guess 2-1, we're putting Calgary.
Yeah,
Carolina in playoff teams.
We'll put Carolina there. Moving on to the Canucks. I don't know where to put. I mean, Okay.
I know where to put them.
I know where to put them, but I'm basing this off the fact that Kevin Lankinen's having a fantastic season.
Demko hasn't played a game yet.
My concern with Vancouver is Thatcher Demko. And so and Pedersen. But the concern that I have with Vancouver is because although Lankinen's having a phenomenal season, he's 6-0-2 on the year. He hasn't lost a game in regulation this year, and he's got a 923 save percentage. He's playing fantastic right now. My concern with the Canucks is are they going to be is that going to be sustainable for Lankinen? And also, when are they getting Thatcher Demko back? And my other argument is Elias Pettersson does not look like himself. 5 points in 11 games for him, for a guy who gets paid $11 million, is just not good enough. I know that they're winning games. I know that they're 6-2-3. I think they're going to make the playoffs regardless. But my issue with the Canucks is they need more out of Pettersson. They need more out of Jake DeBrusk as well, who only has 6 points in 11 games. They're getting guys that are coming in and playing really well. Kiefer Sherwood, 7 points in 11 games. Connor Garland's got 10 in 11 games. JT Miller, Brock Besser are still doing their thing, and obviously Quinn Hughes is Quinn Hughes. But Pettersson needs to be better. And if they want to go as far as they want to go, well, Pettersson has to be at his best. And the other concern is, Silovs hasn't played well in the 3 starts that he's played. And, Lankinen's been good, but how long does this last for the Canucks before it becomes a question of when is Thatcher Demko returning, right? So, although I think Lankinen's a good goalie, I just don't know. I'm going to put the Canucks as a playoff team, but I agree. I don't think they're more than that.
Yeah, well, look, if I'm looking at their starts of the season, Teddy Bluger and Danton Heinen over 0.5 points a game, I don't think that's sustainable. But now you're getting Dakota Joshua, who's going to be returning, and I think that is a good piece for them in their top 9. He was obviously part of the best third line in the league last year with Hoglander and Connor Garland. And this is a team, that's got depth would have depth on their forward lines from top to bottom. Has their decor regressed? Yes, it's regressed based on individual performances. Tyler Myers was viable, a top 4 option last year. He's been struggling quite a bit this year. Hronik is a good player, but hasn't lived up to his overall performance last year. And you got, Quinn Hughes is out there doing his thing. It depends on, getting Thatcher Demko back. This team has all the ingredients, and they have the right coaching to under Tocchet to make it back to the playoffs. This team is extremely well coached. If they get the goaltending right, and which I think they'll do when Demko comes back, Lankin has been holding the fort. I think it's a team that'll make the playoffs at least as a wild card in the West this year. So I think we're all 3 in agreement here.
It's just crazy how Connor Garland has elevated his game since he requested to be traded at the beginning of last season. Like, he's been on a roll ever since then. Like, this guy wanted out, and now he's a focal point in this team.
Sometimes that's all you need, right? Is a little bit of pressure, and from the management, maybe they give you more ice time. Sometimes it's more of a thing about proving yourself.
What I like about this team is the added sandpaper, and it's paying off. And guys like Kiefer Sherwood this year in particular, I think he was a great addition. He comes from Nashville, and I think I'm expecting more from DeBrusk and Danton Heinen and even Hoglander to a certain extent, and like you mentioned, Pettersson.
They need DeBrusk to get going. They're giving him all the opportunity. Playing with definitely, which was an upgrade over center of what he was playing with last year in Boston. He's either playing with Elias Peterson or JT Miller there. He's got to get going. They paid him the big bucks. He's got to be a guy who's scoring 25 goals at least for them this year.
Yeah, because if things are not rolling, they have Besser to sign to a contract extension because he's going to be a UFA at the end of the year. And if you're paying the Brusque money and he's underperforming and Besser's really performing, there's a chance that they lose Besser to free agency, and you don't want to lose a guy like that.
No, exactly. Moving on to the Capitals, I'm gonna say this, guys. I think they're a playoff team. And the reason I say that is I'm not basing it off the fact that they have a hot start, but that does help. They've got 2 really good goaltenders. Logan Thompson's been really good. Charlie Lindgren's been really good. But you know what it is, man? I'm never going to bet against Ovi. Ovi's on a man on a mission. We all know what he's capable of doing, and he's got 7 goals this year. It looks like they're trying to get him to beat Gretzky's record. I mean, at the rate that he's going, he might do it this season. I don't know if he will, but at the rate he's going, he might just do it. But they're getting performances from some really solid guys. You know, Tom Wilson's having a good season. Alex Ovechkin's playing really well. Connor McMichael's been a really good story for them. Dylan Strom's been fantastic.
Yeah,
I think
all this without
their defense has been good too.
Yeah, all this without Sean Walker got hurt
And Matt Roy.
right away. No, not Sean Walker. I meant Matt Roy, who they signed as a UFA this summer, and Jacob Chikrin has missed a couple of games now. He's dealing with a shoulder injury.
But they look good, man. They look really good.
John Carlson's playing great. Power play quarterback, smart D.
I think they could definitely. Yeah, I think they could definitely get a wild card spot. Like they're really. I like what they're doing. I really do, and like even for Ovechkin, like he's elevated his game from last year. Last year at the beginning of the year, he had a slow start, and he had a slow start for a while, Ovechkin, and then he picked it up towards the end. But he's playing well. The Caps are finding ways to win games, and they're getting scoring from everybody. It's not just it's a collective effort. They're getting good goaltending. They're finding ways, and you know Protas is playing really well as well. You know PLD hasn't really lived up to his expectations, but they haven't needed him to yet because they're getting performances from other guys around the team. But
it's 3 lines that could score. That's an ingredient of a playoff team. If you got 3 lines that could score consistently, you're gonna be put in a favorable position.
And Tom Wilson started off the season really strong. Like people were saying that he was going to be
Canada.
Well, you know what, man? Dylan Strome is an underrated dark horse candidate for that, man. I mean, 17 points in 11 games. He's playing some good hockey. He's looking good right now.
Yeah, and he's carrying forward his form of last season. Wasn't either the top point getter for the team last year.
Yeah, he was.
Yeah.
Too
well, I think was it him or Ovi? It might have been Ovi towards the end of the year, but I'm not sure.
No. Honestly, I think it was Dylan Strome or Connor McMichael.
No, it wasn't McMichael.
No,
it wasn't McMichael.
McMichael is a revelation, though.
He's playing really well, but
young guys going this year.
I don't know. Actually, let me check who the top point getter was. But it was either it was Strome and then Ovi. Yeah, Strome had 2 more points than Ovi last year.
Okay, but you know what's good about Strome elevating his game is that we saw what he was capable of. And then when he goes to Chicago, it's like he looked like he was going to be a bust, and then they let him walk. And look how he's turned his career around with the Washington Capitals. And
I said when he signed in Washington, I said he was going to be a really good signing for them.
And what I love about Dylan Strome is that he looks like Nicholas Backstrom's successor, and that's what they've been lacking ever since Backstrom has left the team. And Connor McMichael, entering into the mix and stepping up his game, in relief of a guy like TG Oshie, who's most likely never going to play again. And it's nice that this team is not rebuilding. They're still contending, but they have all these young kids that are stepping up their game and supporting Ovechkin to potentially, be in the mix for a playoff spot, but also help him beat Gretzky's record. And I think that's fantastic. And PLD needs to be better, in my opinion. But, it was a bad contract for a bad contract swap, and they're hoping that he elevates his game at some point. But, I think they had a really good offseason, and adding Logan Thompson with Charlie Lindgren, splitting 1A, 1B is what is working well for them right now. And Thompson, as of this video recording, he's 5-0. So
and he's definitely he's been an upgrade over Darcy Kemper, that's for sure. And I like what you mentioned about they took gambles, but they took gambles on young players.
Yeah.
Like PLD is still a guy that's gonna be entering the prime of his career shortly, and you're getting him for the next 7 years. If this thing works out, then you basically hit a home run. And 6 points in 11 games, settling into a new team. If he finds his groove, this team has got another asset up the middle for sure. And obviously, their young guys are really stepping up. Guys who are like 23, 24 years old, like McMichael
and Protas.
Strome, yeah, exactly. And Dylan Strome is under 30. This is a very interesting group. And I'm interested to see what happens when Jacob Chikrin should be back in the next couple of weeks at the latest. And I'm interested to see what he could do. He obviously had a good start, points wise. A guy who has less responsibility this year this year, because the team is better than he did with the Sens last year, is just going to be a guy that is going to be plugged into a lot of offensive situations for them. He might be another point monster, and you might have a team here that is top 5 in the league in scoring. I think they're just about right now. The power play is firing. It wasn't so last year. I think they're really dangerous. I think it's a team that could score goals, defend, and they have 2 competent goalies.
Yeah, I agree. Moving on to the Columbus Blue Jackets, I'm going to put them in mediocre, but I've been very impressed with the way they've played this season.
A lot of resilience.
I think obviously for them, they're trying to show, some heart and some, some grit and just play hockey for fun. And it looks like they're really having fun out there. They're a team that I think is going to be mediocre. I think that's probably a fair assessment for them. But, I like some of the things that they've done. I think Sean Monahan's been a really good player for them. He's come in and looked really good. Chinakov had a good start to the year, has kind of slowed down a little bit since the start of the year. Kirill Marchenko, I think, is really coming into his own. Zach Werenski's having a good start to the year. So I think they're getting production from guys that I think they want to see production from. To me, I think there's really a big story here, and that's Elvis Merzlikins. He's a 910 save percentage, 269 goals against average. He's played really well. And he really has turned it around.
Everyone wants him.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. He really turned it around from last year. He had asked for a trade from Columbus. There was talk from Don Waddell that he needed to prove that he was able to play in this league if he wanted to be traded. And so far, he's playing some fantastic hockey for the Columbus Blue Jackets. And I think, they're showing that, there is some depth there. There is some skill there. I think, they're an interesting team to watch. They're a fun team to watch. And I really like what Dean Evison, the coach of Columbus, is having them do over there. I would put them in mediocre. I don't think they're going to make the playoffs, but I think they're going to be a team that's going to be fun to watch, just like they've been since the beginning of the year.
Yeah, to add on to what you said, I think, they're playing well now, but I still see teams like potentially the Pittsburgh Penguins, the Buffalo Sabres, and New York Islanders still, finishing ahead of them. Those are all teams I think that'll at least be in the mix. And Columbus this was a season. Obviously, we know the tragedy.
Right.
An emotional season for them. They started off strong, and there's not much expectation out of this group. Obviously, new coach. They're still trying to build a culture there. They still have some leaders of the teams that did make the playoffs, like Boone Jenner and Zach Werenski. But I think there's a team with no expectations right now. And I think, by trade deadline, they'll probably move some performing assets away, just so, you could tank, but not tank by throwing away games off the ice, but just putting yourself in a favorable position, because they do need high-end prospects a part of this organization.
Moving on to the lottery team, or the first lottery team, is the Anaheim Ducks. The Ducks,
Are they that bad?
Sorry?
Are they that bad? Not even mediocre?
I would say they're that bad in terms of the teams that are around them. I mean, they're 4-6-2. They can't score, man. The Ducks can't score.
Without the Stahl in nets, they would be getting their ass handed to them. That guy has been keeping them in every single game. They cannot generate any offense. With Zegras continuing to show that he's not a top elite talent in this league for a second consecutive season.
Can I say something about? I disagree about that. I think he needs to get traded.
Change of scenery.
I think he needs to get traded. I don't think he's a bad hockey player. I just don't think it works in Anaheim. Oh, that's my only opinion.
I think he was a player right off the bat. They put everything on his shoulders. Like, you're going to be the face of the franchise. We're building the team around you. Was he ready for it? Granted, he wasn't. No. But all the talent is there, man. I think he just needs a change of scenery, no pressure.
I think the Ducks did a bad job with him. I don't like what they've done with.
Because they didn't have any good prospects beforehand. With the old general manager, he was going to be the face of the franchise, and then you get guys like Leo Carlson, you get Cutter Gauthier, and Zegras becomes an afterthought after. So, I mean, I do agree that he does need a change of scenery, but nothing has impressed me apart from that amazing season that he's had. Troy Terry seems like he's stepping up his game this season, but it seems like he's the only guy scoring on this team.
Yeah.
Where's Frank Vetrano? He's not doing anything. Cutter Gauthier is having a pretty, rough start to his, rookie campaign. Alex Killorn, that they gave so much money to last season, he's doing nothing. You know what I mean? Like, it's a very underwhelming team. Okay, Mason McTavish has been picking it up recently, but it's not normal that your line of Troy Terry, Ryan Strome, and Frank Vetrano is your best line, and that
Yeah,
Dostal is keeping you in every single
Well,
game, and you're letting him down because you can't score.
the style, in my opinion, with how well he's played this season, like he's showing that he might be one of the best goaltenders in the league. Like he's been that good this season, and like he's got a 930 on a team that's got 4 wins. Like think about that, and he's won
yeah.
all four. He's won all 4 games that the Ducks have won.
He's
Right?
lost four games in regulation and 2 in OT, and
No,
he's still got a 930.
he's insane. Like it doesn't make any sense. The Ducks have literally their goaltender of the future in Dastal. They just cannot put the puck in the net, and that's their biggest fucking problem. Is if they could put the puck in. It's part of my language, but if they can put the puck in the net, or if they can start putting the puck in the net, this team would be a lot better. But I think they're still a lottery team. They're way too young. They need to figure out their offense, and they need to start scoring goals, or they need to figure out a different coaching system, because it doesn't make any sense how you have a goaltender that's got a 930 save percentage and you're one of the worst teams in the league.
Yeah, I think their setup just doesn't make sense. They're aging players that are on big contracts like Alex Killorn that are not performing, and then you have the younger guys who are just not ready to pick up the mantle yet. Like Leo Carlson he's not there yet.
It's
Obviously,
not a good mix. It's a mix of shit and shit, in my opinion. You know what I mean?
it's a mix of guys that are not ready, and guys that can't even pass down the torch because they can't even carry the torch themselves.
Yeah,
So it's like,
exactly.
who are you going to rely on in this team?
No one.
When they face adversity, I don't know if the team that can necessarily come out of it. This is a team that is probably going to be playing from behind a lot this year. Scored 25 goals in their first 12 games. I think that's pretty much worse in the NHL.
I think it is
Team
worse
that's
than
struggling
the
to score goals, and obviously, with Dostal, does the 930 and him stealing as many games as he did gonna hold up? Probably not. So yeah, this team, all things considered, is probably a bottom feeder. I'm sorry, Anaheim fans. I know, they made the Killorn move, the Radko Gudas move, as moves to kind of push this team closer to playoff contention, and other moves as well. But it hasn't worked out. They need to get the fit right. They gotta kind of go back to ground zero.
They don't even have a quarterback on defense. Like, they've tried Mintyukov, who's
The worst part is that defensively they've been good. That's the thing. They
yeah,
have
but
36 goals
who's
against.
that offensive driving talent in their back end? Nobody. It's not.
Well, Mintyukov and Zellweger, but the problem is that, again, bro, look at their coaching system. It's one of the worst things you've ever seen. Watch the Anaheim Ducks for 5 minutes, and you'll get bored out of your mind, because Greg Cronin doesn't know what the hell he's doing, because he's got a
Mintyukov's
bunch
having
of
a sophomore slump. Zellweger, yeah,
Dude, it's coaching. The Ducks need to find a coach that is offensively minded to use offensive players. They have a goaltender. Why are they playing? They're playing trap hockey with some of the best players, some of the best young talent in the league, right? Like, they can't be this bad. They can't. It doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense. Their coach
Okay.
sucks. Trevor Zegras has 3 points. It doesn't make any sense.
Is he worse than DJ Smith was?
No, because DJ Smith actually got the best out of his star players. He just didn't have goaltending.
Okay, moving on to the Calgary
Big
Flames.
accusations here.
This is a team that had a very hot start. It looked like Jonathan Huberdeau was going to be
Mediocre.
back in form, but they've fallen back to earth, and they're a mediocre team. Vladar and Wolf have been playing great. Goaltending hasn't been an issue. Defensively, Rasmus Anderson, Mackenzie Weegar have been doing a pretty solid job. But I don't know, something offensively, it's inconsistent. Connor Zary had a hot start to the season. Now he cooled off. Huberdeau cooled off. Kadri is up and down.
Goaltending has been good.
Yeah, I mean, that's been their highlight in my opinion. Their goaltending.
Is there much more to cover with Calgary here, other than a team that is kind of facing reality now? They started off strong. They're a team that's
Well,
facing what everybody
Sharangovich,
expected.
Sharangovich and Kuzmenko have been very underwhelming.
Yeah.
So there's that to take into
Well, look,
consideration.
this is a team in Calgary that right now is in a tweener between being good enough for the playoffs and being close to the bottom. They still have guys on expensive contracts that could still contribute, like you said, Kadri and Huberdeau. I just don't think. I wouldn't be. I think Conroy GM is gonna start making some moves now. Obviously, we heard the rumors of Rasmus Anderson being in the trade mill. I think they're gonna try to get closer to a rebuild. They have guys that they could flip for a ton of assets, like Anderson and potentially some of their forwards. So to
Yeah.
say this is a team that's going to maintain their record or better, I just don't see that happening. So
I,
mediocre, I think, is where
yeah.
they'll end up.
I think we should move on to the Philadelphia Flyers, guys. Let's make this quick with Philly. They're a lottery team this
Yeah,
year. They don't have goaltending.
they have the worst
Uh,
goaltending duo probably in the league, and
yeah,
it's
they have the
been
worst
confirmed. It's
goaltending
been
duo.
confirmed.
Yeah, they have the worst goaltending duo in the league. Urson's hurt. Fedotov sucks. Kolosov is whatever. Their D isn't great. Cam York's injured too, which doesn't help. They're basically a 1.5 line team. Michkov's been good, but not great. He's been no, he's been good. Michkov's been good.
Good for a rookie.
Um, for a
Not
rookie, he's been
savior
good.
level though.
But I don't think Philly's that good. I just really don't think Philly's that good. Their goaltending is really not impressive at all, and they're a lottery team, man. They're the worst team in the National
But
Hockey
like,
League right now.
what
And
happened to like Couturier? He's having a great season last year. Now he's
Sports.
back to
He
crap.
fell off last year towards the end of the year.
Like I don't know, like it's very weird. Like I know like they overachieved last year, but there was a lot of highlights. And like a guy who's been standing out a lot and has gotten recognition from Team Canada, Travis Steinham. Why don't
yeah,
they
he's
put him on
still
the power play? I don't understand. He's a guy who's offensively talented and defensively talented. He's their best defenseman. He's a two-way defenseman, and he brings a lot of offensive chances. I've watched Philly, and I don't understand what Torts is scared about Steinheim being put on the power play. It didn't work with York on the power play. Drysdale has been awful. It's time to reward your best defenseman, and you're losing games. What do you have to lose? But anyways, that's just my opinion.
Yeah, well, Drysdale's been a disappointment through and
he has
through
been.
since being traded to Philly. He's a guy that I would have expected to kind of elevate into that top pairing offensive role, and given more opportunity, he hasn't really seized it at all. He's been relied upon the power play this year, like you said, didn't work out. We see it here: 3 points in 13 games. It's not good enough. Can they be better? Definitely. I think they could definitely end up being closer to 500. Granted, they get guys to step up their game. Michkov, he's been great for a rookie, but you need guys,
Like
their
Tippett.
depth guys to step up. Like what happened to Yoel Farabee? Really had a great year last year. They're going to be more production out of him. Some of their depth guys, as well. Cam York, I think he's dealing with an injury right now, but I think when he's back, this is a guy that they've touted as kind of their offensive future as well in the blue line. He's a guy who's going to have to step up, and Torts has got a lot of work to do with this team. It's tough because you're playing behind the eight ball, right? You got goaltenders who are just not competent NHL goaltenders. They it's hard to build confidence as a group that way, but they're going to have to find a way to at least start improving on their results.
Look,
But they're bottom feeder.
Carter Hart really set them back in terms of goaltending depth. That's all I'm gonna say about that. Because they
Yeah.
were a good team with him last year.
Yeah, and you'd
But
be able to bail them out, and on a young team, that's what you need, right? So
yeah,
last year they had that kind of formula until obviously the incident, but this year things are different. So
that
let's
was
move
a
on
major
to
loss.
yeah. So let's move on to Winnipeg here. Do you think they're a contender, or do you think they're just a playoff team?
The Jets,
Yeah.
they're a Stanley Cup contender, and the reason why I put them there is because this is a team that's shown resilience. Ehlers Is it
He's back.
sustainable that he's going to continue doing well? He's always shown that he's been a very inconsistent player throughout his career, but he is on a contract year, so he's maybe there's a little bit more, gas in the tank there. Players always love to play their best hockey on contract years. You have got like Niederreiter, Lowry, like all these depth forwards that are playing fantastic hockey. Cole Perfetti's really elevating his game, and most importantly, a guy like Velarde, who was a one of the LA Kings best prospects, gets traded to Winnipeg, and he had a mediocre season last year, but his role was elevated this year, and
Yeah,
he
I
really
follow
seized the
too.
opportunity. So Pionk also woke up this year, and he looks like he's back in form offensively. Helping out Morrissey. Morrissey's been one of the best defensemen in the league, and Connor has been one of the best goal scorers in this league. And I mean, we can't leave out Connor Hellebuck as arguably the best goalie in the NHL.
No,
I
he's in
agree.
that conversation.
I think the Jets are the best team in the league right now. They're showing some promise. They look really good. They look like very intimidating too. They've won games comfortably. This is a team that is coached really well. They've always had a really good roster. I think it's just about putting it all together. But you know, Connor's been fantastic. Edler's has been fantastic. Shifley's been fantastic. They've gotten production from pretty much everybody. Their depth is great. I mean, if you look at everybody on their team, right? Mason Appleton is 10th in scoring and he has 10 points. Like it's pretty impressive. So I think the Jets are in my
They're a
opinion the
four-line
best team in
team.
the league. So they're good in
Yeah.
every aspect. Can't
They're
complain, and
they're
I'd put them as cup contenders.
yeah, they're a team that's always been touted for obviously Cal Lowry. I mean, not Cal Lowry, not the NBA player, Adam Lowry, uh, for his role on the third line, and they have four lines that could score right now, and it's a recipe. Obviously, mix that with amazing goaltending, and that's a recipe to
So
beat
many guys with double
a lot of teams.
digits, and some of them are third liners. That's fantastic.
Yeah. And look, their decor is been holding up quite a bit this year. And this now post Rick Bonus has been kind of a more offensive minded, less pragmatic approach. And I think that just this personnel is really suited for it. They have a lot of guys who have that dynamic ability all throughout their lineup. And it's just right now you're seeing it at 5-on-5, and they have a goalie who could back them up. So this is a group that's played with a lot of confidence. And I wouldn't want to, if the playoffs were to start right now, this is not a team I would want to play. So I would also have them in the category of they hold up. I think this is a Stanley Cup contender.
The
I'd agree.
Seattle Kraken, the definition of mediocrity.
Yeah, let's just be real here with Seattle. They haven't really been all that impressive this season. I mean, the courts played well, but besides that, they just kind of haven't shown much. They've had a lot of, let's say, injury issues as well with their defensemen. Obviously, Vince Dunn being out doesn't help. But I'm not overly impressed with Seattle. I don't really like what they've done. I think they've kind of just been mid, and that's really the reality. I mean, they beat the Habs 8-2, so I can't really say much, but I mean, besides that game, they were kind of mid all season. So,
It's
they're mid. That's pretty much all I could say.
honestly, it's the deployment of their forwards. They try to give equal playing time to everybody.
All 12, literally.
When
Yeah.
like when like Jared McCann is the only guy that knows how to score goals on this team. He's
Chris,
the
are you
only
mad because you have him in fantasy? Is that why?
No, he's been fantastic. I mean, I can't complain, but I mean, he deserves more playing time. Like, don't tell me that you're not gonna like. There was the game versus the Montreal Canadiens. You have Jared McCann playing the second power play unit, and it worked. Okay, fine. Stevenson had a good game that game, whatever, and so did Montour. But like, what are you doing? McCann is a 40 goal scorer. Put him on the freaking power play. Give him 20 minutes a
No, I
game.
agree. He's their best
Yeah,
scorer
yeah.
he's their
don't
best
don't
scoring
give
threat
him.
by far.
You want to win games, and it seems like they're too busy trying to be fair with everybody. Like, I'm sorry, but Jordan Eberle shouldn't be playing on the first freaking line. Like, he's past his prime. Like a guy like Tolvanen, who's young and has proven that he's actually good offensively since he's I mean, even with his time with the Nashville Predators, but since he's joined the Seattle Kraken, they're giving him third line minutes. Give him a top 6 role. He's a guy who is drafted high in his draft class. Joey Decourt is bailing them out. Grubauer is awful. and they just signed the court to an extension. He's clearly their starting goaltender. Grubauer, trade him. There's so many teams that need a goaltender.
Yeah, let me
Philly,
ask you this.
Edmonton, all those teams. You can eat some freaking some money on that deal. Matty
Yeah.
Beniers, he's not playing like a top three round pick.
Well, he's not playing bad. He's got
What the
9
hell
points in
is Shane
14
Wright
games.
doing?
Yeah, Shane Wright's been bad, but
Yeah,
Matty Beniers has been okay. That's
Like,
not horrible.
like
I don't think Shane Wright. I wouldn't write him off yet. I've watched some of Seattle's games. He's still kind of piecing it together. I think the
Yeah.
skill is there with him. They gotta be patient, but right now, I don't think he benefits from the fact that he's placed third line minutes. When this guy, ideally, if you want to see what you got in him, you got to give him that top 6 role,
Yeah.
right? And like you're saying, Chris, like some of these vets, I don't know what it is. I don't know what rapport they have with members of the organization, but Eberle, I know he's their captain now, but he is beyond his prime.
Yeah.
Jaden Schwartz should not be in your top 6 as well. I think they just got to give more opportunities to the young guys to see what you really have. Because yes, it's great with this whole parity thing. All 4 lines are gonna get their minutes, but you really want to see what the real foundation of this team is, because this formula they've used of the 4 lines has been since their inaugural season. Obviously, at the beginning, you're looking to find an identity as a club, but now I think, look, see what you have with your high draft picks, see what the foundation of this team is, and then figure out everything else afterwards.
I agree.
like I don't know, man. It's like it worked 2 years ago, and Seattle made the playoffs, but it clearly did not work last
Yeah,
year.
it doesn't
And
work anymore.
like you need to, and you bring in a new coach and Dan Baslin to change things up, and
And
he's just,
Bowsman.
yeah, whatever, and he's just bringing the same coaching strategy as the previous coach.
David
Like,
Hasselhoff. Yeah.
I'm sorry, but Jessica Campbell, the smoke show, is not going to save you. Like, like I don't know.
Anyways, we'll
moving
see
on.
what happens with Seattle. But yeah, I think they're more mid than anything else. So, it's just my opinion on it.
Well, it's great that the NHL has now got its first female assistant
yeah.
coach. That's obviously a great feat.
Moving on to the Devils.
Stanley Cup contender. Put them in there.
No,
Are you okay, Chris?
They're getting great goaltending.
I'm
from both
telling you,
goalies.
they're getting
you know what?
inconsistent. They're getting inconsistent good goaltending. That's what they're getting.
Playoff. They're a playoff team.
As a wild card, I'd say they're going to get it.
They're a playoff. They're going to make the playoffs as a wild card team. They've had inconsistent goaltending. They've had inconsistencies this season as a whole. I'm not going to say goaltending because it's been all around the board.
I mean, they have 3 shutouts.
I understand.
As a
They're also
goalie,
not playing very. They're having games where it's like I said, it's inconsistencies. They have really good games and then they have a lot of really bad games. And Nico Hischier has been really good, by the way. He's been fantastic.
Yeah.
Jack Hughes hasn't been as good.
Jesper Brad's been fantastic.
Oh, I think there's some positives for New Jersey. I'm not concerned about them. I think they're going to make the playoffs. I think it's early in the year, but
they're getting a healthy decor now.
But yeah, they have a healthy decor. I think Markstrom and Jake Allen is a really good tandem. I'm not worried about the Devils, but I think if you look at the other teams in the Metro, I don't necessarily believe they're at the top. I think the Rangers and Carolina are definitely better than them.
I would say they finished third in their division.
Third or the wild card, I could definitely see, but they're a playoff team. So that's where that's my opinion on it. I don't know if you guys have anything to add.
Yeah, I think they have the ingredients, man. They have the ingredients to make the playoffs this year.
I agree.
Dawson Mercer needs to take the next step. Paul Carter's started off really hot. Now he's cooling off a little bit. And I think Luke Hughes really needs to step up his game because
he just got back.
Yeah, I know, but he's supposed to be on that first power play, and Dougie Hamilton's still there, so he's not really making a case for himself. So let's move on to the next team.
The Islanders.
Patrick Roy's first full season.
Lottery team.
No, mediocre. They're mid. They're.
I guess we all disagree. I would have had them. Look, I'll put the middle ground here, but I would have had them on just missing out.
I don't agree with just missing out. I think the problem with the Islanders has always been the same problem for the last 10 decades because Lou Lamoriello never seems to want to address the one glaring issue that the Islanders seem to have, which is putting the puck in the net. So and now they don't have Matt Barzal either because he's hurt. So
He was playing awful. Come on, he was playing awful.
but either way, they're mid. Like as much as I want to praise the Islanders, Noah Dobson is their best defenseman. He's been okay this season, not at his best. Sorokin and Varlamov have been fine, but the Islanders can't score. They're
They've
not
been
really
bailing
good
them out
offensively.
without their
Yeah.
goaltending. They're basically the
They're mid.
Eastern version of the Anaheim Ducks, in my opinion. They have this
No,
good
two
mix
different
of
builds of the
offense.
team.
They're better than the Ducks. They're better than the Ducks.
Look, well, they're actually in scoring. They're just right above them because they're 31st and the Ducks are 32nd in scoring.
Let's go.
And
There
if
you
you look at
go.
their power play is listed right now at 28th, and their penalty kill is 31st. So they have to get things sorted.
You know what, Chris? That might not be a bad shot, actually, as a lottery
There
team. Now that we
you
think
think I
about it.
don't pay attention? This is
Jeez,
why we're
man.
doing this video.
Yeah, they're not. Okay, honestly, keep them as mediocre, but like lottery team could be. They might actually be bad, man.
Goaltending has been bailing them out. That's
Jeez.
Sorokin yesterday versus Pittsburgh. If he was
I-
in the net,
Zach.
they would have lost.
Zach, put the Islanders in lottery, and we'll put Chicago in mediocre because I think they're gonna rotate this year.
Chicago is going to be mediocre this year.
Yeah, I put the Islanders in lottery, put Chicago in mediocre because
That's,
Chicago
like,
actually.
Here's why I didn't want to put the Islanders so low is because I do believe at some point with Patrick Roy, the program is going to work. But right now with the evidence, their special teams putting them at a disadvantage. They can't buy a goal by any sorts, and they get outplayed by a lot of teams right now. It's not looking good. But Chicago is a team that I'm a little bit higher on just because I think, they added some experience, they added some more competent NHLers, and look, they play good hockey, and they play in a lot of close games because of that. Have they surrounded Connor Bedard with the best core of players? No, but they're competitive in a lot of games, and they're definitely better than they were last year.
For real, I agree. I completely agree.
Chris,
Chicago without Connor Bedard, it would be really bad. But it's nice to see that they found, Donato as a good partner for him on that first line. Is that sustainable? Maybe, maybe not. But it's underwhelming to see and disappointing to see that Teuvo Teravainen couldn't last in that first line, and he's been, spiraling downwards ever since like the first 5 games of the season in Chicago, and he's like on the third line. Hall and Bertuzzi are on the second line playing with each other with Nick Foligno, if I'm not mistaken. Like it's like they have a lot of vets, but not like it's like the Ducks. Like they have nothing to show for it. It's like they're completely gassed out. They have nothing to prove. Like I don't know. But I do believe guys like Vlasic on defense have been pretty impressive. I think Mrazek and Soderblom have been pretty good goalies and probably one of the most underrated.
I think
in the league.
like you're saying, Chris. I think Chicago's doing decent with the numbers that they've had. They've put up decent numbers as well. I'm not concerned with the Hawks. I think they've shown that they're capable of winning games and staying in games. And I think Bedard's played well. He leads the team in points, so he's showing that he's capable of leading a team. Obviously, he's not a point a game, but I think he's playing good hockey. But it's a good team. I mean, they're not like I said, they're not horrible. They weren't like last year where they were like really bad. I think there's some promise with the Blackhawks, and who knows, man? They might surprise some people, but I think they're more mediocre than anything else.
Yeah.
Moving on to, in my opinion, I'm gonna say this only because it's Connor McDavid. I'm gonna put them in playoff team, but I think I would not be surprised if they just missed out either.
They're gonna miss out this year.
As long as Draisaitl and McDavid are still breathing, they're making the playoffs.
Yeah, but this is with like an asterisk next to it, okay? Because let's be honest, guys, and I know last year they made the Cup final. We had the same conversation at the beginning of the year. I don't know what it is about the Oilers in starts to the season, but one thing I can tell you for sure is Stuart Skinner is not as good as people thought he was. And the playoffs last year that he showed was a fluke. Calvin Pickard's been a lot better. And I mean, for the Oilers, look, they've played better lately. They're a playoff team. At the end of the day, like I said, Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl are your two best players. You can never bet against them. But let's be real. Zach Hyman is not the same player. He's 4 points this year. He's just not doing good at all. Right? Darnell Nurse has been a liability for this
Oh
team
my
for a long
God,
time.
Hyman's not going to repeat as a 50-goal scorer.
Yeah.
So
Like,
surprised.
Wow, who would have
That's
thought?
it. Like they're not as good. They're not as good as they were last year. I'm not too overly impressed with them. But again, it's the Oilers. McDavid, Draisaitl. McDavid's back from injury now too. So look, they'll find a way to make the playoffs. But I'm not impressed with the Oilers. And
Like, I think this
that's my
team is
opinion.
only going to start clicking. I know this is a hot take once they get Evander Kane, and I know Evander Kane really regressed a lot.
I don't even
last
agree
year,
with that.
but I think they're just missing some sandpaper offensively. Like, they have too much offensive talent, and it's just not clicking. Like Victor Arvidsson, what has he been doing? Jeff Skinner, what has he been doing? These are guys that have proven to be, 50-point players, and like you're being paired up with two of the best players in the world. You can't generate anything. What the heck is
Yeah,
wrong
I
with
think, I think
you?
it's a question of timing for those two. I think that they'll just get the fit right at some point, and then for the second half of the year, you're gonna see it. You're
Like
gonna see the better production.
Ekholm is a fantastic defenseman. I think that's been like literally Ken Holland's best move as when he was the general
Right.
manager of the Edmonton Oilers. He's fantastic as a two-way guy, and even putting him on the power play, which no one would have saw that coming. Bouchard needs to be better. And I don't know. Like, this is a team that takes a lot of shots. They generate a lot of offense, but nothing's going in right now. And they need to get a goaltender. It's freaking 3 seasons, 3 years, maybe even more that I've been saying this since we've been doing this podcast. It's still an issue. Stuart Skinner is not a starting goaltender in this league. Calvin Pickard, okay, wow, he's been a serviceable backup goaltender. Wow, fine. You need a legit starter. This is
Yeah,
ridiculous.
I
You're
think
wasting McDavid. You're wasting
uh,
Draisaitl.
I
Come
think
on.
I think we have the same conversation about the Oilers every year. And
Yeah.
at the end of the day,
Slow
like
start
it's
last
kind
year.
of
They were
getting
what,
it's
5-9 to start the year, and then they turned it around.
they're
They'll
gonna
win like 3 or 4 games at a time, and then things are back. This is a team that's gonna make the playoffs.
yeah
And on paper, once they figure it out, they've got more depth on offense. They've got more scoring threats. Their decor is pretty much the same. Their goalies are pretty much the same. It's the same thing, and you're gonna get a 100-point season or a 95-point season. It's the same thing. They're gonna make the playoffs, and then we'll see what they could really do.
Let's move on to the Florida Panthers, guys. Let's just be real here. They won the cup last year. They're off to a great start this year. They're cup
Oh, yeah.
contenders again. In my opinion, they might even be cup favorites again because they're that good. But Florida's Florida, man. I have honestly, we don't even have to go in depth on how good Florida is. They're arguably one of, if not the best team in the league. They're so good, and they're continuing where they left off from last year. Even though they lost Montour and Ekman Larson, they look like they're not even out of place. Like, it's Florida's great. They're good, and they just got Barkov back. Sam Reinhart's playing some of the best hockey he's ever played in his career. Even though we said that last year, he's continuing from last year. Florida's a cup contender.
I'm just a little bit
Absolutely.
scared
And Spencer Knight has got a
Bob.
role again on this team. He's played in four starts, looked pretty good.
Yeah, looked okay. Yeah,
I'm a little bit scared about Bob, though. His numbers have been kind of underwhelming.
yeah,
so
but he'll
far.
bounce back. And Florida's Florida. So I mean, at the end of the day, as long as he plays well in the playoffs like he did last year,
Another thing that you have to mention, though, they need to figure out who's going to be their quarterback defenseman on that power play, because it's not Bachfist.
Aaron Ekblad, please. I have him in fantasy.
Well, I mean, it should be Ekblad because they tried Forsling and that didn't work.
They have Ubis Balinskis. Sorry if I pronounced that name wrong, as their first line power play quarterback.
I don't know who that guy is.
Anyways,
Who's going to be Nate Schmidt?
I don't know. But moving on to guys. They're a lottery team.
No. The Pittsburgh Penguins.
They're mediocre at best.
They're a lottery team.
I would put them here.
No, mediocre, please.
We have to put it somewhere in the middle. So mediocre, but I think that the core is like, Crosby and Malkin obviously got off the hot starts, but not everybody else. Kind of situation.
Raquel has been impressive.
And Tristan Jarry is, for Penguins fans, I hope he doesn't start another game for them. He's in
the AHL, so
yeah. Well, yes, and then he got sent down, but he played I believe it was 3 or 4 starts before he got sent down.
Yeah, yeah.
And Nemjelkovic is their guy right now.
And
I think,
Blomqvist looks good too.
yeah, I think they got to ride Nedeljkovic as much as they can. I think he's better than people think. Top to bottom, this is a team that should be better than their record. They added some depth scoring.
Yeah.
Kevin Hayes has looked all right. They've added, Glass, obviously. Raquel has been off to a decent start. They just need to get their depth scoring at some point, and it's the roster that's good enough to be competitive, I think.
It's an issue when Malkin is playing left wing to Crosby on the first line. That's an issue.
They have no depth, bro.
Yeah.
Drew O'Connor was Sidney Crosby's left winger to start the season. Like, let's look at this normally. Like,
Crosby's literally
I don't
carrying
know
his team on his
how-
back right now.
he's playing really good hockey right now, and he's playing some solid.
Him and Ovi turned back the clock this year.
Yeah, but like it's just, bro, they need to because they need something. But like, this is a team that just they're not good, man. Like they're really
How's
just not
Letang
good.
doing, man? Look at that plus minus. It's awful. Eric Carlson.
They're just
Okay.
not good. They're not good. Like they're not good. That's literally all it is. Like Crosby, Malkin, Carlson, and that's about it. And Ricard Raquel, and that's
Michael
about it.
Bunting hasn't done anything this year.
After he got traded from Carolina, a part of that Jake Gensel deal, he was like a point per game player, and it was
Yeah,
high
he's
hope
been
he was
bad.
going to bounce back. And look
He's
at him.
been bad.
He scored his first goal this week, I think.
Yeah.
So.
Let's move on to
Guys,
another
they still have Sidney Crosby, Malkin, Carlson, Letang.
And they still missed the
We
playoffs.
I know they'll miss the playoffs, but I think this is a team that you could lock. They'll be above 500. This team is good enough. They have all the experience, decent decor. Yeah, look, their depth scoring is when you're relying on Lars Eller to basically be your fourth most productive forward. And you have some issues there, but I think other guys are going to step up.
I agree. Anyways, moving on to another team that's been really bad. Look, I'm going to go out on a limb and say they're going to get better. So I would put them in just missing out, even though they're having a bad season. I know Zach would disagree.
For me, it's mediocre.
For me,
But I would have
one of the worst
have
5-on-5 teams in the league with in a conversation with the San Jose Sharks.
No, it's just missing out.
I think they're gonna get better. They have to get better. I mean, they were better last year, and obviously they've added Stamkos and Marchessault and Brady Shea, and I know that they've had a slow start, but look, the Preds are still the Preds. I mean, Forsberg and Ryan O'Reilly are still really good players. UC Saros is still one of the best goalies in the league. Like, I think just missing out for the Preds. Obviously their slow start doesn't help, but I think they'll find a way to pick it up eventually. And I think
they had a slow start last year too, and then their second half of the season.
Yeah, they're not gonna win 16 straight games though. That's the only other thing. I that's what I see. So I think they're just missing out. I think they're gonna bounce back eventually, but that's how I see it.
I don't see it. They play a style on their brunette that's counterintuitive to the way the roster's built. They play a high tempo forecheck. It doesn't work with the guys they brought in, Stamkos and obviously Marcia. So Tommy Novak's not good enough to see on that line. The chemistry is just not there other than the top line with their forwards. Brady Shea is going to do well this year. I think he'll be a nice complement to Roman Josi. Saros is still good. The underlying numbers are saying he's still doing well.
Yeah.
But I just think they don't have the fit right. The chemistry is just not there with this team. I don't see I know it's early, but I don't see a pathway for them beating some of the other teams,
Maybe.
the other good teams in the West.
Marchessault has been a better fit on Nashville than Stamkos, but he's been clicking a lot better.
That's true. He has been.
And on Ryan O'Reilly's been their best offensive player.
And
all
defensively,
around.
as a unit, they've been one of the worst teams in the league as well. They give away a lot of high danger scoring chances.
Yeah, they're disappointing.
Moving on, Rangers guys, Cup contenders, Shesterkin, Panarin.
Yes, sir.
No one can really argue this. I think differently. I think, guys, let's just be real. They're Cup contenders. Like they're a good team. They're fantastic. They're playing good hockey. Lafreniere looks great. Not surprising. Panarin looks great. Everybody looks great on the Rangers. They're just a good team.
Hand them the cup at this point.
I mean, yeah, they're good. They're good.
They's got to get to the finals this year.
And they have the best goalie in the league. So,
No,
Yeah, Riley Smith looks like a good fit for them. Nice
I think
compliment to their top
Connor
line.
Hellebuck's the best goaltender. Or say
You can argue Hellebuck, but him and Shesterkin are 1-2 easily. Um, I would say let's just move on to Ottawa, and obviously Zach, you can give your. I'll let you put Ottawa where you think they should go.
God tier. No, they'll be a playoff team. It's a bit of an underwhelming start. 1-5 on the road. They've
gonna rip them
not
now.
gotten points in games like the game they lost against Vegas, coughing up a lead with 5 minutes left to go into the game and not even going to OT. They have to find ways to win close games, and that's been the struggle for the team as the team matures. But I like what I've seen fundamentally with Travis Green. His team has got a lot more D-zone structure that's better in the neutral zone. The power play has been fantastic. Kachuk, Stützle have been scoring at a high pace. They have some key injuries like Artem Zub on the blue line would push Hamonic out, who I don't think is an NHL player at this point, and is holding back Sanderson. Allmark is been okay, hasn't been at his best. I think he's going to settle in. Forsberg's been good. I think overall they have all the ingredients. It's a good team on paper. They play well. They just have to figure out a way to grind out more points, and I think that just going to come with experience in this season.
What pisses me off about this team is that Allmark is clearly their starting goaltender. Okay, he's had 3 good games, 2 of which he's won. One of them, it was a loss versus the Rangers. It was a 2-1 loss. Okay, which you can't really blame me
And he was
because
bad last night against Buffalo.
what do you mean? He was horrible yesterday. The
That's what
Sens
he
were
said.
horrible.
I said
That's what he
bad.
said. Yeah, he said he was bad last night.
Well, yeah, but that's what I'm saying. Like, apart from those 3 games I mentioned, the Rangers game, the first game of the season where they won, and one of the games that I think where they won 8-1 versus St. Louis. Apart from those 3 games, like those are the only games where I feel that the team showed up in front of Allmark. Apart from that, they've been letting him down, and it feels like they only come to play when Forsberg's in nets. He has 2 shutouts with the team, and like Forsberg's not your starting goaltender, and this is a guy who's very inconsistent, and he's shown some flashes that he could be a very good backup, but this is not the guy you should be relying on. And it's very concerning that Allmark is having underwhelming numbers at this time, and that whenever he does play, Ottawa just seems to forget how to score goals and how to defend in front of him.
I think
it's
Zach
hard.
said it. I think Zach said it perfectly off camera. The Sens need to find a way to close out close games, and I think if they can do that, they'll be a good team. I don't. They're not a bad group. They're built really well on paper. I think being concerned about Olmark early on in the year, I think is valid, but it's not going to last. This is a guy who won the Vezina just as close as 2 years ago. He was on a really good team last year in Boston and played really, really well. He's going to bounce back. It's gonna happen for the Senators, and I think once
I
that
hope
happens,
so.
they're going to
I
get.
think they're playing too well to not win more games.
Yeah, they are. They are playing well. That's the thing.
5-on-5,
Well.
they're up there with the best teams in the league. Like
They're just
5-on-5 chance creation. 5-on-5 scoring. Their power play is fantastic. Defensively, they shorten things down.
they just need to find a way to close out games.
Yeah.
That's it. Moving on to Buffalo, guys. I'm gonna give a big prediction here. I think they're just gonna miss out. I think they're better than people give them credit for. I think
They're
they've
trying to pick it up.
Yeah, they're starting to pick it up. That win against Ottawa yesterday was impressive. I think they're a team that's finally starting to slowly come on their own. Rasmus Dahlin's having a nice season so far. I think they're starting to figure it out under Lindy Ruff a little bit, and if they can continue that, they might be a fun, exciting team to watch. But I like what the Sabres are doing. I think they're going to just miss out. I don't think they're good enough to make the playoffs, but they're definitely fun to watch so far. So I have nothing really much more to say other than that. But they look good. They look okay.
Look, for the Buffalo Sabres, their goaltending their starting goaltender has been fantastic. And
Yeah,
Luukkonen, is that his name?
Luukkonen. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
okay,
obviously,
perfect.
the first 2 games were the only concerning games for him.
Yeah, but he was
yeah,
strong
he's
last
better.
year too. In terms of the defenders, Dahlin started off really rough and he really picked it up. Owen Power, a lot better, but still inconsistent. Bowen Byram, bad start until probably his last game where he scored 2
He's
goals.
just not a good fit, in my opinion, with Buffalo. They
I think
have
they
their
lost
offensive
the
guys
trade.
on the blue line. They didn't need a Bowen Byram.
Yeah, that was a weird trade. I think they expected something with Bowen Byram that isn't there, and I think, like you said, you've already got offensive guys in Darlene and Power. Adding Bowen Byram to that mix is, I think, just a little bit too much. But
Like
he's not a bad player.
look at Middlestad. Like it
Yeah,
blew up
he's
in their
playing really
face.
well.
Like I don't know.
Moving on to the Sharks, guys. They're a lottery team, but
But they're on a heater right now.
they're on a heater right now. They look really good. I really like the way they're playing. Toffoli's having a really good season. They have Celebrini back now. I think they're going to be fun to watch, guys. I mean, the Sharks have been playing some good hockey as of late. I think they're going to be a fun team to watch, but ultimately they're not as good as every other team in the league. They're a lottery team, right? They're still on the rebuild stage. They're not where they're not, far into their rebuild to where you can say that they're going to be in the mix, but they're not bad. Like, this is not a slate at the San Jose Sharks at all. They've played some good hockey. They have some good players. And obviously they've been playing most of the season without Celebrini. They finally got Celebrini back now. So let's see how that goes. But no, I mean, lottery team, but not in a negative. I have nothing negative to say about the Sharks other than the fact that on paper, they're just not as good as every other team. And
Yeah, I don't think any Sharks fan would be offended that you said that they're not.
no, but like, maybe they're like, oh, because last year, they started 0-10 and, they were on a down year and it was tough for them. But, this year they're at least winning games. They're competitive. Like they're actually fun to watch. They're not like, it's not like you're not dreading watching a Sharks game. You know what I mean? Because they're not losing 10-0 every night. So at least that's a positive, is what I'm saying, is that they're playing fun hockey and they just started winning recently, but they've got some interesting stories, and Granlund's been good, Toffoli's been good, Zetterlund's had a really good season, and obviously Wallman, they acquired Liljegren in that trade with the Leafs, so I think the future's bright in San Jose.
Yeah, they've been off to a very, very good start, in my opinion.
For their team.
I think Will Smith is the guy they expected
Yeah.
more from. He had a little bit of a slow start, but he's been producing more recently.
Yeah.
So he's a player I would keep an eye on. And
they're competing in every single game. I'm just a little bit I'm a little bit weirded out with how they've been using Jake Wallman, who's been their best offensive weapon on the back end. And I know they got Timothy Liljegren, or we didn't really speak about in terms of a trade that they made with the Toronto Maple Leafs. But it seems like the minute they got Liljegren, they're like, okay, thank you, Waltman, for your great week of quarterbacking the first power play. You're forgotten. And they made him a healthy scratch. And apparently it was something that happened off ice.
Yeah, I think it was an off ice issue.
But like, still, like, I just feel like it's very weird that you're trying to win hockey games, and I don't know. That's kind of a weird move in my opinion.
But I don't think it's a weird move. I mean, if it's something that happened off ice, I think it's more to send a message to say, look, like, you have to hold everybody to a standard, and we don't know what happened off ice, but clearly he must have done something that he wasn't supposed to do, and so he got punished for it. I mean, at the end of the day, Kem Fialaga was a healthy scratch because he missed a team meeting for LA. So it happens. It's at some point it happens, and you know what? I think it's smarter that teams do it that way because it holds everybody to a standard to say, look, you're not better than anybody else. You should, be held accountable. And again, I don't know what Jake Wallman did, but if he got scratched, he probably did something he wasn't supposed to do. So yeah, that's how I see it. Moving on to Dallas, they're cup contenders. I mean, they're great. They're fantastic.
They're right from where they left off last year.
There's some concerns though. I have to say though, Tyler Seguin's health being in and out of the lineup this season, that's a huge blow to them.
But that's not really a concern though.
But even like putting like Robertson on the third line and Wyatt Johnson too, they're not even in the top six.
That's because Dallas is deep, bro. That's just because Dallas is deep, bro.
Yeah,
they guys that were elevating their game the last 2 years, and now they're playing on the third line. That's kind of
they have like two.
I don't think that's a concern. I don't think that's a concern. I think that just shows that Dallas is good.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, Robertson probably isn't playing as good as people would have expected from him, but Logan Stankoven's been fantastic, right?
And despite those guys not scoring, what's their record? 7-4. Like the team scored 35 goals. This is a team, like, I'm not worried about Wyatt Johnson only having 6 points so far. I'm not worried about Robertson.
They're gonna bounce back.
Thomas Harley too is not
Thomas
off to a
Harley
great
too. I
start.
think there's only 6
Even
points.
Heiskin is not great to a great
But
start.
but you know what, guys? This is all stuff that's okay because they have a lot of depth and they're getting scoring from early. But this is a team that can play all four lines, and all four lines are going to contribute. You know, Mason Marchment is a guy that's really stepped up since he went to Dallas. Matt Duchene's been a revelation for them. Like I said, Logan Stankoven's been exciting to watch and
Wow.
fantastic.
Tyler Seguin's playing 7 games and he's leading. He's in the top.
Yeah, he's playing well, bro. But that's what I'm saying. Like, I think Dallas is in a position where there's nothing really concerning them. I think, yeah, obviously you could argue Tyler Seguin's health's a little bit of a concern, but either way, man, like they have Ottinger in net. You know, their backup is Casey DeSmith. Both of them have played pretty well.
They had a shitty Finland trip though.
They did. But like, it is what it is.
Well, they lost both games.
Yeah, but you
Florida
know
has the kryptonite.
It's okay. I mean, but besides that, I think Dallas gonna be fine. They're a cup contender. They're showing exactly what they're made of, and I like them. I like them as a team. I think they're gonna win the cup. Well, I think they're gonna win the cup eventually.
What's going on
That
here?
might be my early prediction dark horse. I might have just revealed it. We'll see.
I love Dallas.
I love Dallas though. I love Dallas. Let's move on to the next team, which is the Tampa Bay Lightning. They're gonna make the playoffs. But there is some concern. Now, you want to talk about a team with concern? This is a team with concern.
They got one line scoring. That's it.
They got one line scoring, and their D isn't that great. And Vasilevsky has been okay at best, I would say. He's been okay.
I would say that, you know, like there's been games where Sorelli and Nick Paul stepped up, but not to a consistent level. And now with Braden Point being injured, we don't know the extent of his injury and how long he's going to be out for. But, you know, they lost versus St. Louis yesterday, and he had a hard time scoring on Binnington.
Yeah, they're a one-line team, but I'd still put them in the playoffs. I think they're better than everybody else in the Atlantic. I mean, they're better than Montreal. They're better than Toronto. They look
so smart with Gensel playing better than Stamkos right now.
Yeah, right now, Breezewell looks like
it's the kind of trade-off that a smart GM does. You give away an aging star, and you get one who's in his prime, and they're both great on the power play. But Jake Gensel is the better 5-on-5 player at this point in his career, and look, it's showing. He fits like a glove with this team. It's just they have Mitchell Chaffee and Nick Paul on their second line. It's not necessarily ideal.
Yeah.
And their bottom six is not great. It's probably one of the worst bottom six in the league. Their D-core, I think, is the least of their concerns because I like Moser. McDonough's a good player as well. And yeah, they just make sure to not play the backup, Jonas Johansson, Chris's favorite goalie, as often as they would like to.
And they might win.
Did you see that collapse versus Winnipeg?
It'll be all right.
Did you see that collapse versus Winnipeg? Like, that's the type of goalie that he is.
He sucks, bro. He's always been bad. But anyways, moving on to Utah, mediocre. They're just mid.
Great start, and then they lost Sean
4-1, I believe, until they lost on home ice against the Sens, and then they started falling off.
The thing with Utah though is they went off to a good start, but the problem with their team is that they're still not where they're supposed to be. They have a lot of injuries. They've lost a lot of guys. I think Sergachev has been good for them. Obviously, he's out now, I believe. But even still, though,
isn't it Sean Durzi that's injured?
Oh, Sean Durzi. Sorry, it was him that got injured. Yeah. And then in net they haven't really had good goaltending either from Ingram or Vejmelka. So that's been a problem for them. But they're mid. They're fun to watch. I think like Genter had a really good start. He's kind of slowed down a little bit since then. But they're not bad, but they're not good either. They're kind of just there. So they're mid.
The injuries definitely don't help on their blue line. Yeah. Their blue line is pretty thin right now.
Actually, you know what?
Didn't they make a move to acquire a D?
I would put them in just missing out because if they acquire a D, they might be fun.
Yeah, they acquired Olimata.
I'd put them in just missing out. I think they're a good enough team that they'll surprise some people, but I don't know if they'll make the playoffs.
I agree with that. Best move guys been made the last 2 years.
Yeah. Vegas.
They're a playoff team. If we consider that things hold up, they're a playoff team and a cup contender. No,
I wouldn't say cup contender because I feel like this is a very hot start and they're gonna get exposed soon because of their lack of
I don't
depth.
like their forward group. I think their defense is really good, and I think
Yeah,
their
yeah,
goaltending. I
100%.
think their goaltending is good with Aiden Hill. My argument is it forward wise, they're not
Thin.
weak, but they're
injuries
thin.
scare me because
Yeah,
already Olofsson has only played 3 games or 4 games.
yeah,
Something
yeah,
And
like
if
that.
you lose
Yeah.
Eichel and Mark Stone, and then that group is really thin.
Jack
yeah.
Eichel and
But I
Stone are like waiting to get like they're like this
Okay,
close to getting
I'll
injured.
put
I'd
it
put
playoff.
them, put them in playoff team because of the injury
They're gonna make
concerns.
it.
But they're a good team. They're a good team. They're
Yeah.
gonna make it.
Minnesota.
Minnesota playoff team, but they've been impressive, man. Kirill
Yeah.
Kaprizov is really like coming into his own now. We already know the skill that Kaprizov has, but Minnesota is a playoff team in my opinion. They're not contenders because I don't think they have the team yet to be a contender, but they're definitely playing good hockey. Matt Boldy looks good. Marco Rossi looks good. Eriksson Ek, Kaprizov, obviously, as I mentioned.
Ryan Hartman looks good too, even
Yeah,
though he's
Ryan
injured.
Hartman, and even on defense, man. I know Brock Faber hasn't produced at a rate that I think people would have liked, maybe at the level that they wanted to, but defensively he's been solid. Jacob Middleton has been a real big help for them on that back end defensively. They got Jared Spurgeon back from injury now. Jonas Brodin's been a big help for them. So Minnesota look good, man, and Gustafson's playing some really solid hockey in net for them. So I like what the Wild are doing. I think it's good to see, and maybe they'll be a surprising team this season, but so far so good. They're one of the best teams, one of the hottest teams in the league, and they're going to make the playoffs, I think, if they continue this.
Yeah, they have a good group with experience and youth.
I agree.
And yeah, they have some good components. This is definitely a good team. I don't think they have an explosive core to say like, oh, these guys could go head to head in a playoff series against, let's say, the core of the Colorado Avalanche as an example. But I think, off their hot start, I think the West, the Wild West, is wide open. I think they'll be able to squeak in at least.
Let's skip Detroit, Montreal, and Toronto for a second. Let's just do LA because I think we all want to talk about the last three teams here. But LA, for me, I think they've played so well this season. They're really good structure playoff team for me. Only concern
they could be here. Here's why they could be here. If they had a goalie. If they had a goalie, they're here. Everything else is almost perfect.
And if they had Drew Doughty.
Yes. But I think LA is one of the most underrated teams in the league. My only concern with them is I don't know how far Kemper and Riddick can take them in terms of like if they were to go to a playoff series. I'm saying I know Kemper's won a cup, but I just don't think
Kemper's an upgrade on Cam Talbot.
He is. But I'm saying like all things considered, like LA's still playing really good hockey, and Fiala looks good. Anze Kopitar's having a really good season. Alex Laferriere came out of nowhere, and looks incredible.
More
then obviously
finally as well. All high draft picks.
Brian
Clark has been absolutely dynamic offensively.
So I
think Spence is a good player. They have great young D. They're young players. I think this was a criticism on LA in years past. Their young players never really got a chance. It was the core and then everybody else. But now with the Doughty injury, especially at the blue line, they've had to experiment a little bit more. And like these guys, even the guys on offense, Turcotte and Laferriere, Fogle has been up there with their first line in terms of most consistent.
My only concern is Quentin Byfield right now.
Yeah, I was about to mention that.
Yeah, but he did have 2 or 3 points in last night or 2 nights ago.
So maybe he's bouncing back, but he's been a little bit of a concern to start the year.
Yeah.
Detroit,
mediocre, man.
Mediocre.
They could even be a lottery team if it wasn't
missing out.
Teams. They could be here.
Mediocrity. They're not a lottery team yet.
They're having a hard time generating offense this year, and like,
Zach, if you want to rant about the Red Wings, now's your chance.
There's no rant here. Red Wings fans, they're not. Don't even think about playoffs. Think about getting rid of Yzerman because the Yzer plan is going to Yzer shit right now. They have nothing going for them other than a power play and a shooting percentage that are at a regular rate, but they're still a 500 team. Their goaltending is probably one of the worst, probably after
They
Who
started
do
off
we
good.
do after Philly? This is the worst tandem in the league. Like, let's just say it how it is.
Zach has this hatred for Detroit that I just
It,
absolutely love. It's so
but you know
funny.
what? You know what, guys? It's an honest hatred. It's like there are facts and evidence and how this team plays. That's like I don't know how they win games. Honestly, like they have a couple of really good players, and they score on the power play and
That's
5-on-5
energy.
on defense. They look chaotic.
Yeah, I
Most
agree.
most Sider is struggling a little bit, but I think he'll pick it up.
I agree.
I just don't like how the team is built. Patrick Kane has been all the underlying numbers have been saying that 5-on-5 he's pretty much useless defensively, and offensively he hasn't been great either.
No, he's been pretty bad.
Yeah, and
Let's
yeah,
yeah.
let's skip like unless you guys want to say anything about Detroit or if I covered everything.
Yeah, I'll say that their goaltending has been surprising. Like I expected a lot worse from them. It's their offense from in terms of their depth scoring, and apart from the power play, like you said, like that's been concerning. Like what's up with Kane this year? What's up with Tarasenko? It's
Old
just
and
not
washed.
clicking.
That's what's up with them.
It's like I think they reached a point where they realized, like these guys
Ain't
are
that
washed.
good.
It's
Yeah.
they're finished, So so we'll see what happens. And their defense, apart from Moritz Seider, and I think Edvinson's been pretty underrated as well.
Yeah, he's been good.
Where are
apart
all
from
these?
that,
Let me ask you this: where are all these great prospects? They haven't made the playoffs since 2016. They draft all these guys. Where are they? Like I'm
Marco
trying to find them in
Casper,
in
where
their
are
lineup.
you? You're a
What was
ghost.
that?
Said, where's Marco Casper, the ghost?
He's in Grand Rapids. He's not really playing.
Oh
But
boy.
let's
And
move
Sebastian
on.
Poza
They're lucky they have
killing it.
Lucas Raymond.
What is he doing there in the AHL?
Yeah, I don't know, man. But let's move on to um, a lottery team for the Montreal Canadiens. I had high expectations for this team. I think we all had high expectations for this team going into it. I'm gonna be honest, guys. I'm only doing this. I'm only saying lottery team because I'm very disappointed with the way they've played this season, and I think that they're showing regression that is concerning for a fan of the Montreal Canadiens. With that being said, I do think that there needs to be some improvement, obviously defensively, which has been a real big problem. I think Montembeault as of late has played better. He hasn't been, let's say, great this season, but he's been better the last couple of games, and obviously he had a good start, the first two games. But the problem with Montreal is they have a lot of guys that probably shouldn't be on the roster that are. They're not playing as good as they need to play. They're dealing with, they haven't had Line A in the lineup either, which I think hurts them offensively. But they're if they keep this up, they're going to be a lottery team. And I think it's disappointing that for a GM that came out at the beginning of the season and a coach that came out at the beginning of the season and stated that they were going to be in the mix to put up the performances that they've been putting up, I think is very disappointing as a fan. And so for that reason, I have them as a lottery team. Do I think they should be a lottery team? I think they should be better than a lottery team, personally.
Mediocre. They should be
But
progressing. They're taking a step back, so they're regressing at this point.
But that's why they're a lot. That's why I have them in lottery, because if they're regressing, it means they're taking a step back. It means they haven't moved.
I'll say that the Patrick Laine injury, like that was the killer, because you're like, now you could add some scoring to this lineup. The first line is good. At least it was fantastic towards the end of the season last year when Slav got going. Right. You could rely on that, and then I think expectations were also too high with Kirby Dach. He's back from a serious injury, but look, his implication level in games is just not there. He's got some skill, but the grit is just not matching with it. He could do a lot more. Patrick Laine, like that loss was like, it killed the whole vibe in the city. Everybody was excited. You finally got a guy who you think is okay. He's going to be the next 40-goal scorer for the Habs potentially, and to lose him in a stupid throwaway preseason game is just unfortunate. Look, what I hope they get him back, and you see those flashes of Laine of old. It's going to happen at some point. But right now, this team is too thin in terms of their skill forwards. And on the blue line, there's some work to do too. There's a lot of inexperience. They could probably use another D to stabilize that D-core via trade, I think. But right now, I think Stan, it's not pretty, and the goaltending is average at best.
Lane Hudson's been probably the most exciting thing that's happened this season, which I mean is expected because he was exciting last year and when he played, and he's been exciting all season this year. And Caden Gooley, I think, has played some good hockey, and I think Caulfield's played well. Everybody else has kind of just been there, and they need to be better, and that includes the captain, Nick Suzuki. I don't care that he's a point a game player. I really couldn't give a rat's ass, to be honest. He hasn't looked good at all, and he needs to wake up, because if he doesn't wake up, Montreal's not going anywhere. And even still, they need to see there needs to be an improvement. And if Marty St. Louis isn't going to call out the stars, I'll call them out on a podcast. I don't really give a shit. But he needs to stop putting Christian Dvorak and Josh Anderson in overtime, and he needs to stop putting Nick Suzuki and start, making players take accountability. Like, dude, if Suzuki's going to play the way he played yesterday, he might as well just sit on the bench and not play at all. Because at that point, no, but dude, like it's bad. Like it's getting to the point where it's bad. Like wake up. You get paid $7.8 million. You're the captain of the hockey team. You should not be putting up performances like that. Not consistently, at least. And that's what he's been doing. So I'm sorry. I maybe it's me ranting a little bit, but I think Marty St. Louis should send a message to the locker room and say, you know what, next game, not to sit Nick Suzuki, because I wouldn't say that, but you know what, if he has another bad performance, sit him for a period. Send a message to the locker room to say, you know what, man?
They benched Fiala, they benched Pasternak. I mean,
what's the message going to be to this team? What, Nick Suzuki's okay and can take a night off? No, man. You're the captain of the hockey team. You have to be better, and you're not. When Brendan Gallagher is out playing you, okay, for most of the season, there's a problem. So wake up. And I'm not going to start ripping into Kirby Dach because he just came back from injury, and Slavkovsky's actually given effort. I'm talking about Nick Suzuki, and I'm talking about Mike Matheson. Those two guys
had 2 injury scares too. So
yes, but Mike Matheson and Nick Suzuki need to be better. And if those guys are not better, Montreal's not going anywhere. So those guys need to wake the fuck up. Get the head out of their ass and wake the fuck up. That's it.
Let's tag Nick Suzuki and Mike Matheson.
No, but dude, like, I'm sorry. I needed to rant about that because I was very annoyed yesterday. Like, single-handedly, like, just incompetence from both those two guys is just like we can talk about Dvorak and Armia all we want, but at the end of the day, the big name players are not doing what they're supposed to do, and that's it.
I think the Habs peaked at the beginning of the season. When after wins versus Toronto and Ottawa, it's like they completely collapsed.
We made a video after they had played 4 games, and we're like, at that point, after 4 or 5 games played, we're like, there's something there.
Yeah.
The team looked exciting offensively. Very opportunistic. Montabo was great to start, and now things have honestly fallen off the rails almost. They really have to pick it up now.
Losing my mind.
Look, you guys are Habs fans, and I'm sure the rest of the fan base is not going to accept another throwaway season. There has to be. They have to do some. Management's got to do something to at least improve on last season.
If there's an improvement on that horrible Chicago team, there has to be improvement on the team filled with stars.
Look, I don't care that Liney's injured. I don't care about other injuries. Like the team's got to be better.
Let's move on to the final team on this list, the Toronto Maple Leafs. Guys, they're a playoff team. But I like what they're doing. I think Toronto's a really good
their
team.
style quite a bit. It's a completely different style.
And I like Berube as a coach. I think Stolarz has been a fantastic signing for them. They seem to play better when Austin Matthews is in the lineup. Maybe he's the problem, but Matthews needs to be better, I think, as a whole this season. But in general, look, the Leafs always have this. They always start October a little bit weird, and then they kind of get better as the season goes on. They're adapting to a new system, but they're a playoff team, guys. We can't say they're cup contenders because they've never gotten past round 2. But we can admit that they're a playoff team, and they're gonna have a really good regular season. Like,
and they're also adjusting to a new coach's system. They're playing more defensive hockey, and I think it's been working. And their goaltendings have been benefiting off that. So sure, maybe Matthews doesn't score 69 goals this season, but at least if you have a better structured team heading to the playoffs, that's you're gonna see a lot more playoff success. So.
Yeah, well, I think one thing with the Leafs that may be corny, but the one word is accountability.
Yeah.
You see Berube calling out Marner and Matthews on the bench, asking them to do better. They're playing a different style where the forechecking is a lot more physically demanding. He demands more from them defensively as well. Small small details. They're a team that he's trying to create a system of play where they could be more efficient in the playoffs, where they could go head to head with teams and not just rely on their stars to basically pick up the pieces, because that's not worked for them. And it's accountability, and the team is good enough. Stolars has been great because Wool was hurt in the beginning of the year. So this is a team that obviously on paper is good enough to make the playoffs. They have all the firepower up front to do that. Now it's a matter of it not if they'll make the playoffs, it's how far they'll go.
Yeah.
But yeah, decent start, 7-5-2. I don't think Leafs fans are too disappointed because it's a similar start they had with a long tenured coach last year. It's just a matter of getting better in certain areas and relying less on the stars during the regular season.
Yeah. Anyways, I think that's it.
Yes. Well, that concludes our video. Guys, make sure to please like this video, comment in the comment section below. We'd like to hear your thoughts on all three of our opinions, and make sure to write your own predictions as well. We'd like to hear your thoughts and have a little debate with you guys in the comment section. But thank you so much, guys, for watching, and we'll see you in the next episode of the Young Nuts podcast, and hopefully some of these teams that are underperforming do pick it up by the next time we do a little recap video, probably after the Christmas break.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys.
Anyways,
Peace.
thank you so much for watching. Goodbye.